Here. So good afternoon. Welcome from the sunny Atlanta, Georgia. It is now after 4 o'clock, and we are continuing our conversation with the candidates. Atlanta has a school board race that's coming up very soon, and so we want to have a conversation with the different candidates. We are not paid for or endorsed by anyone. And this is just a friendly conversation so you can get to know the candidates who are running for school board here in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, also, before we get started, due to so many things happening around the world, I do want to take a moment of silence for the things that's happening overseas. And if you don't mind, just a brief pause to keep those families and individuals lifted up in prayer.
Are you referring to the bombing in Israel?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Are you referring to the attack by Hamas?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I'm aware of Hamas.
Okay, so I just wanted to give a moment of silence for them, just out of respect.
Got you.
Okay,
All right.
let's
We're
go.
here.
So Mr. Johnson, I've
I
been
be
waiting to
here.
talk to you. So let me give you a nice little icebreaker. What did you have to give up to achieve the current level of success you have right now?
First of all, let me introduce myself. Hold that
Oh,
question.
okay, come on.
Let me introduce myself. My
Mm-hmm.
name is Raynard Johnson. I am a candidate for the Atlanta School Board to be a representative for the District 5, which comprises the Mays Cluster, Douglas Cluster, and part of the North Atlanta Cluster. I'm a native Atlantan, born and raised. I am not a Grady baby, though, because Grady was still segregated when I was born in the 50s. That's why they created Hugh Spalding Hospital for Black doctors to give birth, to help give birth to Black babies, African American babies. But that's nonetheless.
Mm.
I am a graduate of Atlanta Public Schools. I'm a graduate of Southwest Atlanta High School, which is now Gene Childs Young Middle School. I'm also a proud graduate, and I say that with emphasis, of Boston College, where I majored in computer science, have a degree in computer science from Boston College. And for the past 40 plus years, I have been a program manager, project manager, as well as I've been in process improvement for various companies within their IT software development space. Companies such as Bell South 3 times, MCI, Ernest Young, let me see, Home Depot, UPS, McDonnell Douglas, and the Federal Reserve Bank, amongst others. So, from my perspective, I think it is quite simply looking at APS as a systems approach. I think it would be a great idea if we utilize some of the vast intellectual capital that's not being utilized in the Atlanta University Center by using harnessing that intellectual capital of Morehouse, Clark, Spelman, Georgia State students that are majoring in education, who have to have so many required student teacher hours to fulfill those requirements, tutoring our students in literacy at our after school parks and recreation centers, boys and girls clubs, and YMCA. So, in a nutshell, that is I. Now, your first question.
Wow. So back to the icebreaker. You got to tell me what did you give up to achieve the level of success you have right now?
What did I give up to achieve the level of success that I have right now? Give up?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely nothing.
Hmm.
I didn't give up nothing. I'm not one to compromise what I need to get to get to where I need to be to. I'm not willing to compromise too much of myself
Okay. So next question. Why are you running for school board?
because of the given where we are with only 31% of our students reading proficiently by the 8th grade. Only 25% of our students are proficient in math by the 8th grade. We've had more than a decade of the same lackluster progress by the current school board members. I am not an educator, but I am fairly educated enough to know to ask the right questions to lead to better educational outcomes. Why am I running? Because if a little African-American young man in Southwest Atlanta who was just a nerdy kid who knew how to take tests halfway well, who was able to have the opportunity to go to Boston College and graduate, I think these APS kids should have the same opportunities. That's why. Because where
Well,
we are now is not where we need to be.
mhm,
And I think through policies, we can initiate some policy initiatives that can be
mhm.
done right now to put us on a different trajectory as to where we are and where we need to be. Our as is does not look good, but our to be looks very promising if we institute some sound, logical, systemic policies to put us in the right direction.
Okay, I like that. Let me ask you this. Um, Now I'm from the West Side. I'm born and raised here in Atlanta as well. What are some of the needs that you see that the children and family are dealing with that leaves us at this 31% um proficient rate? What are some of the needs specifically in your district or for those who may not know closer?
Okay, well, that's a very good question. Although Atlanta Public School Board is primarily responsible for hiring and firing a superintendent, passing a budget, and as well as passing policy initiatives, that's not good enough. There are things that go on outside the classroom that affects that child. Okay. We have the 1/2 or 1% sales tax that goes towards our eSPLOS. Why we cannot leverage that such that any contract coming out of that bucket of money, if the scope of work of that contract has anything to do with the skill set of these vocational ed students who are not going to go to college, but who are taking up a vocational trade, let's put in the RFP that these companies will be required to hire these kids. Why are we not hiring the kids that we're training for these vocational ed jobs and we're giving out contracts, millions of dollars of contracts to companies? That's one need. That way we are uplifting the economic base of our community using our tax dollars. Right now, if you're born at Grady Hospital, you only have a 4% chance of getting out of poverty here in Atlanta because we have the highest income in mobility and the highest income inequality in the country. So giving a push, lifting that boat by giving these kids jobs, do our tax dollars, that's one way of uplifting our economic situation here in Southwest Atlanta. As well as this, say I'm a single mother or a parent, and I have 3 kids going to APS, and they have to ride MARTA to go to school every day. That's $15 a day. That's $75 a week. That is almost $400 a month. Well, I'm thinking this. Why cannot MARTA be free for APS school kids, K through 12, who have a valid student ID, the same way it's free for Washington, D.C. children who go to school every day? Okay, why can't MARTA be free? Because that's $400 a month. That's utility bill. That's clothes. That's food for that child. We have a lot of children that are mobile throughout the city. They go from one school, they may go to 2 to 3 schools in one school year because they're mobile. Well, let's help keep grandmama in her house. Why can't we do like DeKalb County? And if you're 65 years or older, you are exempt. You do not pay the educational portion of your property tax. That's half your property tax bill right there, cut in half. Let's keep grandmama in her house because Douglas and Mays cluster, we have the highest percentage of students being raised by a grandparent. According to the equity audit that was done at least, 5, 6 years ago? I know they're doing an equity audit now, but the last equity audit, Mays and Douglas had the higher percentage of students being raised by a grandparent. So another need that we have is this. A lot of these kids come to school with trauma. They're traumatized. Daddy beating up mama, mama beating up daddy, grandmama beating up daddy, everybody beating up somebody, the gangs, the violence, the drugs, and that school bus ride to school. Why can't we have a paid from the district level school bus monitor on every school bus? That'll keep down on the bullying, the fighting, and hands touching young ladies that they don't belong touching, because you'll be surprised what goes on at middle school and high school bus going to school. That way, that'll cut out a lot of that trauma. Also, a lot of kids, they pretend, oh, I'm sick today. I don't want to go to school. When in actuality, their uniform is dirty and they don't want to go. Okay, Home Depot or Lowe's, let's put a washer and dryer in every school. As you could tell, I just want to get the excuses out the way. Let's remove some of these impediments to learning so that teachers could teach. Again, I have not spoken about pedagogy, curriculum, testing. And speaking of testing, until Black folk, African Americans are on that board that produce those questions, then you could tell me a Black child can't read. Because right now we are not at the table with Pearson, who's the #1 provider of the testing and curriculum in the country. We're not on that table with them. So until we have African Americans who are educators at the table writing the questions, then you could tell me our children cannot read or write. So there are many needs in our communities. I think we could overcome some of these obstacles or these impediments to learning if we get together and put together sound policies. And going back to the thing about MARTA, the school board can't do that by itself, by no means. You get the mayor behind you. You get the Atlanta City Council behind you. You get the state reps and the state senators and our state delegation that's within the city of Atlanta. Get them behind you. Get the Fulton County commissioners behind you. And collectively, with that force of people and institutions, then, because see, by the way, MARTA was free during COVID. MARTA was free during COVID. Okay, so MARTA can't say, oh, we're going to be losing so much money. You've been in the black for a long time. So you're not going to, the bottom line is we need some relief on our side of town financially if you want to lift these boats of all these families and students. So that's just a sample of some of the things that are missing that can be done right now to help improve educational outcomes, as well as the fact that we need more social workers. We
Yeah,
need more
I think
counselors.
I
We
think
need more.
all schools supposed to have at least one social worker now.
That's not enough. That we should not have to wait for a child to have 10 or more unexcused absences for somebody to go knock on that door to find out what's going on with that child. We should have to wait to then. We shouldn't have to wait for all of that, as well as you well know, many young men and young girls who cannot read proficiently, guess what they do? They act out in class. They cut up. Why they want to cut up? Because they don't want to be in there trying to read a book because they know they can't read. So let me just cut up, act a fool, get in trouble so I can get out of that classroom. We need to find out the root causes that's behind that child at behaving the way they're behaving. Many children are dyslexic and they have reading abnormalities. Let's get to the root cause of all of these actions that's causing them to act out. So that's just my take on some of the things that can be done right now. We need more social workers to come in here to find out some of the root causes that's behind this behavior, for us to fix those root causes so that that child will be more prepared to stay in that classroom and not cut up and not act out.
So you dropped a lot of nuggets, a lot of them that I'm most definitely familiar with, because I could tell you as a mom and a classroom mom, I do remember advocating under maybe Dr. Christophin to get washers and dryer, our partner, Home Depot, to put washers and dryer in the elementary school, but I don't think that they're in, middle and high school. Because to your point, there were kids coming to school and their clothes was not clean. The bus ride was uncomfortable. I've advocated for those bus monitors as well as the kids who walk to school. A lot of our babies, I lived in Southwest, over on Cascade. And so we had a lot of kids who walked to school that was just, the whole walk to school was traumatizing before they even got inside the school, which caused a lot of problems before class day even started.
Right. One of the traumas of children walking to school, that if you live within 1 mile of the school zone, there's no bus pickup.
Mm-hmm.
You're required to walk to that school.
Yeah.
Here's my question. Are they walking in the street or are they walking on the sidewalk?
There you go.
Are they
Mm-hmm.
walking on the street or are they walking on the sidewalk? I think there should be legislation put forward by the school
Mm-hmm.
board in conjunction with our partners, the Atlanta City Council, to say
Mm-hmm.
such that if you're within every school, within 1 mile of every school, you should have a paved sidewalk
Yep.
going to that on the main route. I'm not saying the side streets. The main route to that school where those
Mm-hmm.
children walk to school should be a sidewalk, so their kids will not be walking in the street going to school.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
That's my take. So I know it's under Public Works under the City of Atlanta, but again, we have to come out and get out of our comfort zone as school board
Mm-hmm.
members and go to our legislative partners, the Atlanta City Council, and say,
Mm-hmm.
let's do this. And people speak about engagement, parental accountability, parental engagement. Well, they say, well, parents don't come to the PTA meetings. They don't come to the Go Team meetings. Well, to me, they don't have an incentive to come other than their child. Let's use maybe the carrot stick approach. Whoever our partner is at that school, at any school for that matter, for a Go Team meeting or a PTA meeting, let's get together with Scanner, Georgia Power, or Atlanta Gaslight, and say we will match you dollar for dollar. Let's raffle off some credits to these utility bills. Say we raffle off 5 people a $50 to $100 credit off your utility bill. Trust me, they will be there. They might not be there for food, but they will be there to get some money taken off their utility bill. If you say we're going to raffle off 5 tickets and they each are worth $50 to $100 off your utility bill, trust me, the whole room would be packed with parents. So
Absolutely.
that's one way of engaging parents
Mm-hmm.
in this conversation about their children. If you want them to attend, incentivize them.
Yeah.
Incentivize them. And going back to your prior question about what kids may need, what's missing here in our community,
Mm-hmm.
right now, 78% of African American students make up Atlanta Public Schools. Those 78% students make up 91% of our school suspensions. So let's talk about the school, the school, the prison pipeline. Well, that's it right there. That's it. Atlanta Public Schools, you're perpetuating that. Okay, because if 91% of our school suspensions are made up of brown babies, most which are probably young black men, that's problematic. And the fact that that statistic even exists and no current school board members even speaking about it speaks volumes as to where their heads are. It just speaks volumes. So next question.
So, my last question is, these things that you have spoke about, tell me, what have you done, to kind of help bring forth change in these schools, in these communities?
Okay, interesting question. I've been appointed to the Fulton County's District Attorney's Anti-Gang Violence Task Force. I've been a member of let me try to think what's on the back of my flyer. I'm a CASA volunteer, CASA. I'm also been appointed to, I was appointed to the turnaround committee for the Maze Cluster. And let me think, I've been appointed to something else. Oh, the Restorative Justice Board through the Atlanta Municipal Court. So those are kind of things that I've been appointed to, the boards I have sat on, which they basically deals with children that have been in trouble. Okay, be it the Restorative Justice Board, the Atlanta Municipal Court, or the Fulton County District Attorney's Anti-Gang Violence Task Force. Those are the things I've been appointed to, that I've worked in within the system to try to effectuate change of some of these young people who are wayward, so to speak.
Yeah, I appreciate that, because I
They're
know
not on the right track.
those are some really important task force, especially for a lot of our children, black and brown, who experienced the suspension, possibly getting kicked out of school, being victim to the, the juvenile system. So I really
Speaking of which, speaking of the juvenile system, here's
okay.
another nugget. This is what that's something I found out from a high-ranking person in the Fulton County juvenile court system. When a parent signs their child up to APS, whether it is a e-signature or a hard copy signature or a hard signature on a piece of paper, there's some fine print there. Some of that fine print is language that gives Atlanta Public Schools the right to go after your child's juvenile court record, even if your child has not done anything on a school ground or inside of a classroom. And say this past summer, I'm a juvenile, I get arrested holding a gun on the belt line. Okay, I have not been adjudicated. I've not been found guilty or innocent. I've just got a record on in the juvenile court system. Atlanta Public Schools are using that record of you just getting arrested, not being found guilty, just an arrest record. They haven't gaining access to that juvenile court record to keep you from getting admitted to APS and or kicking you out of APS. Why that language is that language should not even be there for you to gain access to it. That's number one. Number two, even if you gain access to it, a lot of public schools should be in the business of keeping children in school, not in the business of kicking kids out of school. APS is in the business of kicking kids out of school because they want to cherry pick and lemon drop. Okay, so speaking about the juvenile court system, that is going on right now. It's a practice that's been going on, but no one, absolutely nobody, is bringing that up to the forefront as to let's get that language off that application to be admitted into APS, the registration application, and keep your hands out of juvenile until I do something wrong in that classroom or on that school property. You have nothing to do. You should be in my business like that. You shouldn't be, but they are.
Wow, that's so interesting, and I'm interested in bringing that up so that that language can be removed, because to your point, a lot of kids are being kicked out, and some of them even feel like they're being targeted because of something they may have done in the past. So I'm gonna write that down because that's something I'm interested. I didn't really know that. I knew that kids said like they felt like they was being targeted, but it sounds like it's some language there that targets them, and it helps remove them out of school. So
there's some language either on the electronic version of being registered in your child class or on the hard copy of what they actually signed. There's some fine print somewhere that gives Atlanta Public Schools the right to go after juvenile court records of K through 12 children here in Atlanta, and they're using those juvenile court records to remove to kick kids out of APS or not. Well, don't even get you to be registered. Saying we don't even want to register you. Go to a different district. You can't even register, or we're going to kick you out. Yeah, that practice is going on right now, and I received this from a very high-ranking Fulton County juvenile court official who says this practice has been going on for years, not just recently, for years, and nobody's bringing that up as to why.
Okay. Well, we gonna look into that. We most definitely gonna look into that because that's kind of disappointing. But I wanted to turn it over to my lovely co-host, Miss Sherelle, who is also a fellow APS mommy as well. So, Miss Sherelle, the floor is yours.
Well, I appreciate that, and certainly as you label it and termed it, nuggets Mr. Johnson has been dropping. So we appreciate you coming here today.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
And appreciate you for being willing enough to run for a seat on the board and to bring your skill set to the table in order to ensure that all students are served appropriately. So I appreciate that personally, and would hope and trust that the community would appreciate that as well. So I
Well,
guess
thank you.
my question is, you were running for District 5, and the board is conducting a search for the last superintendent, Dr. Herring's permanent replacement with around about, I guess, 2024 start date. Should you become the next District 5 board member, what would you be looking for in a superintendent? And more specifically, as it relates to the schools and the communities in District 5?
I'll be looking at this. I'll be looking for someone who's had prior experience, who in an urban school district, who's used data to drive decisions, someone who someone who's had experience with uplifting communities that are impoverished educationally, someone who's had prior experience in working with their school board as well as community partners to alleviate some of these obstacles that impedes learning, but someone who has a proven track record in improving educational outcomes. And when I say improving educational outcomes, I think that from a process improvement perspective, it's iterative. It's not just one shot, let's see what happens. It's iterative. You have to keep going at it over and over and over and over again in iteration, saying, okay, what worked, what didn't? Let's take the things that did work and let's improve on the things that did not work. And it should not take 10, 20, 30 years of the same old, and getting the same results. Because we've been down this road before. And in terms of the superintendent, I think we should have school board members who should openly state whether or not, if there's going to be a superintendent change, there were some current school board members in their monthly conversation with the community who openly stated, I'm not supporting extending Dr. Herring's contract. I'm against it. There are some school board members who would not say yay or nay as to which way they go. If you're not in the majority, I don't mind saying no. If I'm not in the consensus with everyone, I don't mind being a lone wolf. I would say, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with what you're all doing. I can't go along with that, and I will vote no for it. Okay? If I agree with it, I'll vote yes. If I don't agree with it, I will vote no. I just think that now we are beyond the time. For instance, my current representative of the school board has been there 6 years. She has voted on 2 superintendents. She's 0 for 2. 0 for 2. Christopher and Herring. So whatever criteria she had for getting these school superintendents, whether the choice was good or bad, okay, this person's 0 for 2. And I think that, getting back to your question, everybody knows about Atlanta. Guess what? Nobody wants to come here. Nobody wants to come here. Nobody wants this job because we need gender diversity and inclusiveness on the school board. And that's the pink elephant in the room. Okay, let's discuss that pink and blue elephant that's in the room. We need gender diversity and gender inclusiveness on the school board, because any organization that does not have gender diversity, sooner or later is going to fail. Sooner or later. So that's my answer with respect to what I'm looking for the next superintendent. Again, I'm not an educator. I'm not. I'd be the first to admit it. My background is software development and process improvement. So if I get to learn about pedagogy, I'm a quick learner, by the way. Did I say I have a degree in computer science from Boston College? So I'm a pretty good learner. Okay. So if I have to learn aspects of, pedagogy, how kids learn, disabilities, and, special ed, special needs, that's fine. Anybody can pick up a book and read and learn about that. But the basic premise is still the same. We must have someone as a superintendent who we hire, and I say hire with emphasis. We are the employer. They are the employee. And for some strange reason, We have that flipped around, and the school board does not have, at least they don't demonstrate or leverage the weight of an employer to their employee. We're partners with the superintendent, but at the end of the day, I could hire you and I could fire you. And until we get that as a foundation to say, you know, for instance, I don't think the facilities department should have much power as they do have in the facilities department. You know, we have a lot of abandoned properties in Atlanta public schools. We're the largest landowner in Fulton County within the city limits of the city of Atlanta. Atlanta Public Schools is the largest landowner. Okay, so I just think that until we come up with, until we start electing school board members who are willing to think outside the box, work together with our business partners, because we need to bring them back to the table. And because the other day someone says, well, we already have tutoring programs. We have it at Home Depot. We have it at Kaiser. Well, are they at these rec centers after school? Or you just come in once every now and then and tutor kids in reading? Is it a consistency every day after school at these rec centers, Boys and Girls Club, or YMCA? We need somebody there consistently, a consistent face with these kids to help teach them to read. Because reading is fundamental. And I think that a child that is educated is more than likely to make good life choices to try to stay out of trouble. I'm not saying you're going to or you're not, but you have opportunity to make good life choices. So next question, Miss Sherelle.
Well, Mr. Johnson, you gave me a lot to work with right there.
That's why I answered the way I did.
Because
I did it on purpose.
Well, I'm glad you did. Because I think that's some of the struggle of our city, and certainly of our board. I think they're representative of our city and the county and our state in which we live. So I'm going to say I appreciate you for your willingness to tackle such a giant. I'll say it that way. And so I'll be kind. But I'll go here because you did mention a couple of things that I thought were excellent points and just pointed me in the direction I want to travel. So thank you. So Mr. Johnson, on your website, it lists that in the past 12 months, that you have toured every school in APS District 5.
Correct.
And have talked and listened to young people, educators, parents, and community stakeholders alike. Based on your talks, does the Atlanta Board of Education and does the district have another 5 years to wait on equity, stakeholder engagement, culture and climates, innovation and accountability? And what are your concrete discoveries?
To answer your question, we can't wait. We can't wait. We've waited 10, 12, 15, 20 years. We can't wait no more. From my discussions with community members, students, teachers, and parents, they can't wait no more. They've been waiting for the same results that are not coming. And that's why I say, let's utilize some of the intellectual capital that's over by the Atlanta University Center. Let's harness that capital by having these students that major in education to tutor our students after school in literacy programs at our park and recreation centers, Boys and Girls Club, and YMCAs. Let's give these kids some jobs. They need jobs. Let's use our tax dollars and leverage that. And let's go to other powers like, MARTA and say, I think, let APS kids with a valid student ID ride free, because it happens in other cities throughout the country. And by the way, Erica mentioned my opponent. She claims to be on the vice chair of all this National School Board Association, and she's on this of the school board this and the school board that. Well, in 5 years, other than the child sex trafficking or restorative justice, there are other districts throughout the country that are having the same issues we having. What are they doing that we could do here? Erica Mitchell has not brought forth any policies from a national level that other cities are doing that we could do here. I mean, if you're going to all these conferences and you're on the vice chair of this and this and that, where's the beef? Where's the beef? And, and speaking of which, one thing I can say, if I'm elected as your school board member, I will give you a SWOT analysis within 1 year. A SWOT analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of our district. I will let you know the as is where we are, and these are the strategies that we're going to use to get to where we need to be. Because every school within the district is different. Every neighborhood is different. There is no one shot fits all. Okay, there are differences economically, financially. The makeup of the communities are different. So you cannot do this. You have to do this piecemeal, neighborhood by neighborhood. But I will give you a SWOT analysis as to where we are. And I also promise I will be there to vote on every single agenda item on the agenda without being afraid and without walking off that dais just for convenience of not being recorded. Because Erica Mitchell, and I will say this, she has a habit of whenever there is a key instrumental vote, she's AWOL, absent without leave. She is not on that dais. And I'll point to this specifically. Back when we had the 5-year plan, the 2020 to 2025 5-year plan that was voted on, I believe, the early part of 2020 on the school board agenda. That vote came up. Board member Mitchell was there at the school board meeting. She was present. She was marked present, and her vote was counted for every agenda item on the agenda for that day until the vote for the 5-year plan. She was then marked not present. Not present. Meaning you walked away from the dais. Then after that vote, she's marked present and accounted for every vote thereafter on that agenda. So don't you think it's kind of strange that you are there at the school board meeting, you vote for everything on the agenda before this one item, you marked not present because you walked away from the dais, and then you came back and voted for everything else. Yeah, go back. It's on their website. Go back and look. I could promise you that I will be there in attendance and vote yay or nay, up or down for every agenda item. And if I don't agree with the agenda item, I'll just vote no. If I don't agree with it, I can vote no, because I'm not scared to vote no. Some people are. So I'm putting that out there.
Okay. I like that. I like that. You know what I do like about you, Mr. Johnson?
What is that?
Is the fact that not only have you looked and digested the issues of APS, and more specifically in your district, which is, to me, is really important. You're not willing to sacrifice the truth over the children being sacrificed and being left out in the cold. So again, I'm going to have to say thank you.
Well, I just think children should not be left out in the cold because we have homeless children. We have homeless children. We have homeless families. We have kids who need coats for the wintertime. There should be a food pantry in every school. There should be a washer and dryer in every school. Okay, maybe if there was a washer and dryer in every school, that means mama or daddy could go up to their school, wash those clothes, and volunteer while they're in there. We need we need financial literacy courses at night for parents and students. I think financial literacy should be mandatory if you're a junior, senior in high school. It should be mandatory. Right. You should understand what compound interest means. If you didn't learn it in your math class, you need to understand what that means. So you paying the minimum on that credit card bill, that ain't gonna get you far. That won't get you far at all. Okay, so children need to understand that it's compounded interest, and that it keeps rolling and it's keep rolling. So again, I think that there are a lot of needs out there. I think that what I do, and let me be the first to tell you, I do not have the answers for everything. I do not. But the things I do know about, I think you could safely say Raynard Johnson will give us a critical think from a systems perspective for process improvement. What can we do to improve that particular part of the process of education? I may not know all the answers, but I can use some insight of some of the things that are impacting that child in that space. And how can we remove some of those things that are impacting that child in whatever space that we're dealing with?
Okay, well, I like that you, at least you're honest enough to say that you don't have the answer to everything, but you're willing to at least give it a try. And that's what we're looking for in a school board member. Because every situation is unique, and every child and every teacher, every community, and every space is unique and should be looked at it with an open eye and willing to at least evaluate it and see what's necessary. That's what you do want in a board member. You don't want a board member that has a cookie cutter approach to every situation, because that won't fit. Unfortunately, it's not going to fit in APS, and we know that based on our city demographics and dynamics. So again, I'm going to say thank you. But looking at the school board budget, it looks like we have a $1.66 billion budget.
1.7 billion.
$1.7 billion budget.
Correct. And of that $1.7 billion, what percentage of contracts go to minority vendors?
I'm looking that's my question to you.
Okay, of that $1.7 billion,
But we get 2%?
Especially those in the East Block bucket, the 0.5% sales tax, what percentage of contracts are awarded? Now, and I'm not referring to the city of Atlanta, that has their own minority business opportunity program that Maynard Johnson started way back in the 70s.
Right.
So if the city of Atlanta can have a minority business opportunity program that has withstood judicial muster for decades,
yes,
why can't Atlanta Public School Board members walk across the street to City Hall? It's literally across the street, literally, and up the hill, okay, to City Hall to find out what is it about their minority business program that has been working, that has withstood judicial muster, because the one we have at APS only awards 5% of those contracts to minority vendors. So they say, well, now we cut up our big projects into different portions so that we can have subcontractors. What difference is that going to make if you still don't have the correct number of minority participation of vendors? And that's why I say, until we get our act together for minority participation, let's at least force these companies that we do award contracts to, if the scope of work of that contract has anything to do with the skill set of our vocational ed students, be it plumbing, HVAC, carpentry, whatever it may be, I'll put policies in place that RFP, you're going to know in advance. You have to hire some of these kids as an apprentice. Let's give them some work history. Give them a job. So your question about the budget is, it is $1.7 billion. What's your question regarding that $1.7 billion?
Well, you answered it. You were talking about the minority contracts and linking that to extending internships or apprenticeship to the students that are in APS. Which would be
those are going to graduate with this skill set, because I think you get certified in some of these trades, these skills, through either Atlanta Technical College,
and they have another Atlanta College and Career Academy. So you're correct.
Right, that's a CTAE Academy. Yes,
yes,
that one.
You're correct. You are absolutely correct.
That is what they consider our way of saying our vocational ed students is CTAE.
Right. The unfortunate part about it is how the students are invited to participate.
I'm happy you mentioned that, because I was speaking to a young man recently. He attends Carver High School, not Carver Early College. He wants to be a chef. Okay. And when I asked him, I said, well, aren't you part of the CTA? Aren't you a part of vocational ed CTAE program? Nobody told me about that. My counselors did not tell me about that. Nobody told. I said, you've been telling your counselors, you've been telling people that you want to be a chef, that you want to go to school to be a chef, to cook in a culinary trade.
Right.
And no one has told you about Larry Alford, That he's over it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You never told, no one's talked to you about going to the CTAE program and learning how to be a chef, because I want you to graduate and go to the Ritz as a sous chef,
Right.
the Hyatt as a sous chef, the Marriott Marquis as a sous chef.
Mm-hmm.
Why has no one told you about this program? So you have these programs, but if you are not one of the kids they like, or they don't know you, or they don't know your mama, your daddy, or nobody's pushing for you, they don't. This young man did not have he's a senior. He's a senior right now. I said, well, how long you been wanting to be a chef? He said, since the 10th grade. And I said, nobody's told you about this. He said, nobody's even told me about this. And I said, that is one of the biggest problems. We have these programs, but when I say when I say they, I'm referring to everybody. We
Right.
just share. They means
Right.
everybody: the principals, the counselors, the administrators, everybody, parent, everybody. Put them in the same boat. Nobody's telling these kids about these opportunities, and so they cannot take advantage of what they don't know. They cannot take advantage of something they don't know. And I said, well, since you've already missed the mark to start your culinary, your hospitality training through the CTAE program, I said, go enroll at Marsh Brown. Marsh Brown has a hospitality degree program. Go enroll at Marsh Brown, or go enroll at, it was another school that offers. I gave him two. One was Marsh Brown, and I think the other may have been either Atlanta Technical College or Atlanta Metro State College. One of the two offers a hospitality program
Right.
that he could get into. Since you missed the opportunity while you was in high school, I said, go enroll at Marsh Brown. They have a hospitality program where you could gain access to that trade of being a chef.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. That's something, Ms. Howard, if you will put that down, we can go back. But believe it or not, he has another opportunity during the spring semester. He can enroll and start his dual enrollment process,
Right.
and at least get some of his core classes out of the way so that he can start that journey. But the CTAE program at ACCA will permit him to sign up during the spring, but he would need to sign up now. I think I want to say open enrollment maybe this month.
Right.
But I will certainly find that information out for you and make certain that is given to you so you can give it to that young man and many others.
Right. And I said, you're not alone. There's others in the same boat as you.
Yes.
There are others. I mean, if it's you, that means there's others just like you.
That would be correct. But the unfortunate part about it is that's the counselor's job at his school, who should have been in touch with him already.
Right.
As relates to a transitional plan from high school to, if he wants to, post-secondary training or a career. So that should have taken place already, and really probably should have started when he was in the 10th grade.
Correct. And that's what I told him. I said, by 10th grade, you should have already been informed of some of these opportunities. And, it's a shame that you've come this far, literally crying out. This is what I want to do. This is what I want. I want to be a chef. I want to go to cooking school. I want to learn to cook. But yet nobody's telling you we have these opportunities available for you to get into right now. And I just found that to be interesting, to say the least.
I know it. And
interesting.
Miss Howard want me to wrap it up, but you brought up interesting. I have I promise. And the reason why I want to ask this question is because you were talking about how many that you're certain that he's not the only one, and I can assure you that he is not the only one. But what I wanted to ask you, since you brought that up, during COVID, there were a lot of inequities and disproportionalities and inappropriate or ineffective or non-effective or non-producing plans for students. If you are elected the next District 5 board member, how would you galvanize your colleagues to ensure that there is a plan for students like the one you're referencing now?
How would I galvanize my colleagues?
Yes.
I'll put forth a reasoned rational train of thought for whatever the situation may be. If it still does not convince them of a reasoned, rational train of thought to go along with me, that means in their hearts of hearts, they're not for children. They're for something else. I'm not saying they're racist. They're just not for children, as they say they are. If I could give you a reasoned rationale, because you mentioned COVID, right? You mentioned COVID. During COVID, kids had to learn remotely. We're at 5G now with our cell phones. It was 5G back during COVID. Of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, what G did you give for hotspots to these kids for them to log on to the internet?
2.5.
No, it was 3. It was a 3G hotspot.
But when you use it, I can tell you it was 2.5. And
2.5. They came from Sprint, which means they gave them to you because they couldn't use them no more.
Right.
It was junk. It was junk, right? Here's my thing. If we're sitting at 5G and you're giving kids 3G and 2.5G hotspots, but our computers are set up for 5G and our phones are set up for 5G, what makes you think you're going to stay locked on for a long period of time? You're not. You'll get kicked off because it's incompatible. See, but here's the thing. They knew that in advance. They knew that. And if your CTO, Chief Technology Officer, or CIO, Chief Information Officer, did not know those facts, and I just got a little small degree in computer science, if they didn't know those kids were going to get kicked off Wi-Fi because they were incompatible, I don't see why they have a chief in front of their names. Chief Information Officer, Chief Technology Officer. They knew they were bad. They knew that was junk, and they knew those kids would get kicked off. So that's why a lot of kids...
They got in trouble.
No, they got bounced off the internet because they couldn't stay on. So they say,
but they also got in trouble because when they got logged off, they were marked absent.
They were marked absent. They were marked absent. They got kicked off, marked absent, as if you weren't even there when actually it was the technology that bounced you off. The technology is the one that allows you not to stay hooked on. And that's why I emphasized this back in 2021. That did you know that Atlanta Public Schools owns the license to WABE 90.1? Atlanta Public Schools also owns the license to Channel 8 and Channel 30. Okay? Did you know that the FCC requires any cable provider to have public access channels? Our public access channels are Channel 8 and Channel 30. The next time that contract comes up to the Atlanta City Council for Comcast to get that contract, Atlanta Public Schools needs to be at that table because you own Channel 8 and 30. You own WABE. And I would leverage that. I use that word leverage again. I would leverage that ownership to suggest, not tell, to suggest to Comcast with the Atlanta City Council, if we award you this contract for the next number of years to have cable access for the city of Atlanta, I mean, all cable, all channels. You want to be the cable provider for the city of Atlanta? Xfinity Wi-Fi, that's already a free benefit to all Comcast cable customers. It's already free. It's out here in the airwaves. Let Atlanta Public Schools children have access to that bandwidth. Give free Wi-Fi to all APS K-12 children. I'm not putting a box in your house. I'm not putting no cable, nothing in your house. But I think you should be able to sign up through Xfinity Wi-Fi to gain access to that pipeline that's already out here in the airways free. Speaking about COVID and kids getting kicked off and having access, you have equity. You can't talk about equity. Well, that could make things a lot of equal right there. You give kids access to that Wi-Fi that's out there already to their cell phones. As a Comcast customer, it's already a free benefit. And once you turn 18, you have to pay for it. Once you graduate, once you're on your own, you're an adult. But while you're a K-12 student in Atlanta Public Schools, you should be able to have access to that bandwidth. Those are the kind of things I think could be a vast, big boost for kids to have access to information. It's out there. But nobody on the school board is willing to put their foot out there to galvanize their colleagues, to go to the city council, to go to the mayor and say, this is what we would like to have. Because I guarantee you, when the mayor says he wants it, the mayor will get it.
Well, Mr. Johnson,
Absolutely.
I am going to say thank you. I need some more time with Mr. Johnson. Ms.
Yeah,
Howard.
we got to do this.
I
Yeah.
know you got to go. Just but I'm gonna tell you, Mr. Johnson, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate your honesty, your candor. I appreciate your knowledge, and I appreciate you at being innovative, because a lot of adults don't want to be innovative unless it's pertaining to their income. But you're talking about the lives of children, which is the income of our city, the income of our county, and the income of our state. So I just want to say thank you. I'm not saying that our children will only stay in the state. Hopefully they'll journey past the state of Georgia and continue on. So thank you for coming on and sharing with the community your knowledge, and for willing to be a vessel in the District of 5, and willing to sit at the table as a seat member for District 5 on the Atlanta Board of Education. So I'll turn it back over to Ms. Howell, but I need a part 2.
We do.
I'm just saying.
We most definitely do.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to be here. But you did mention something about the state. Until we have our state reps or state senators to do something about the QBE formula, okay, that's used on the state level to divvy out money to school districts. That QBE formula has not been updated since 1984, 5 or 6, 80 something, 85, 84. Well, not since 84. It has not been updated. It's now 2023.
Mr. Johnson, you can't keep me talking, because me and you, we could talk all day long about these formulas and stuff now.
Well, until our state
inequities and I'm just saying, because it hurts me, because they allow the children, the class of 2022, to come out without being ready. They graduated them out because they had Carnegie units or credits without having literacy. And so that, to me, that's a problem, because now those children are in our community, and not to say they won't thrive, because a lot of young children, they are creative. And I think they could have used those abilities to be even more creative in a more direct way. So again, I appreciate you coming out, but the thing about it is, we could talk all day long about this right here. So part 2 request, I'm just saying.
You got it, Toyota. I mean, Miss Sherelle.
We most definitely got to do. Okay, Mr. Johnson, before we go, tell us how to get in contact with you. If somebody wants to support your campaign, they want to learn more information, where can we find you?
Well, if any individual who's looking at this recording feels like I'm the guy, you could go to www.raynardjohnson.com. That's RAYNARDJOHNSON.com. Go to that donate button. Go down there and you could submit you $20, $25, anything that you can afford, because I am trying to do a mail drop, a mailer, to send out to my 10,000 super voters. And it's going to cost me about $6,000. So if anybody wants to contribute, they can do that. You can also find me on Twitter, or now X, as Raynard Johnson. You can also find me on Facebook at Raynard for APS5, Raynard Johnson for APS5. I believe that's what the name of it is on Facebook. Or just call me at 404-707-7015. I answer all my telephone calls. I don't let them go to voicemail, unless I really don't want to talk to you, but let me stop. But for the most part, I answer all my telephone calls. So if anybody would like to contribute, I would greatly appreciate it. But more importantly, I need your vote. I need your early vote. And I need you to galvanize all your neighbors, your grandmama, your aunts, your aunties, your neighbors, your uncles, have them to vote for me. Because but I just say this honestly, if the community is satisfied with what they've gotten in the past 6 years, don't vote for me. Nah, if you're satisfied, if you're happy with what you received, as far as educational outcomes from the current school board member for the past 6 years, do not vote for Raynard Johnson, because I won't give you that. Okay, I'm gonna give you business as usual. I will not just I'm not go along just to get along, and I do not have to like a person to work with them, and they don't have to like me. But I will say that anyone who wants to be a part of this revolutionary uplift, vote for me, because I'm about ready to do something that's never been seen before. I want to be able to say, let's put forth some of these policies. Let's hire these kids if our tax dollars are going to be used for this contract, and these kids have a skill set for it, hire them as an apprentice. Let's go to MARTA with our collective voices. Let's get MARTA free. That'll put pressures off these families. Let's put a wash and dry in every school. That'll put pressure off these families, which is outside the schoolhouse. All these things have nothing to do with that classroom, but it affects that child in the classroom. Okay, so that's what I'm about. Thank you for having me, giving me the opportunity to come on and speak.
Absolutely.
I greatly appreciate it. If you need a part 2, or 2.1, or 1.2, or 1.5, feel free to reach out to me, because hey, as Deion Sanders said, ain't hard to find.
Yes.
Ain't hard to find. I ain't hard to find, but you can find me. I'm not hard to find. So again, I appreciate your time, and on to victory.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate you so much for coming on. If you're watching the replay, you heard all his contact information. Please go check him out and support him. And to victory, we go.
Sounds good.